Things I wish I had known as a young leader, part three. The next topic is be honest with yourself. You got to know who you are before you do anything else. Um, I think it's really critically important to understand who you are as a person. I don't mean this kind of in the ethereal sense, but I mean this in like a multi-dimensional, practical sense. It's very challenging when you're young. This is very challenging, especially in college or when you're on your first job, right? There's a reason why people say that they're finding themselves in college or that, they need to take a year off to discover who they are after high school or college or what have you. It's an important thing that needs to happen in everybody's development. Um, you have to know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what your quirks are, etc. And you have to be okay with them and be willing to work on them if you need to. So I'll give you an example. For me, it took me a while to understand that, I actually enjoyed studying and being a nerd, and that was okay. Um, I wanted to exercise and work out every day. I'd feel terrible if I took a day off or didn't have my routine, and that was okay. It didn't mean that I was some sort of like exercise freak. Another one is that I like being around people, but at the same time, I can be socially awkward at times, and I know I have a social meter, so to speak. So after it runs out, I have a really tough time being in social situations, and I enjoy alone time and feel like it recharges me, right? This is all very normal. These are all things that at one point, though, I told myself, or society told me, that there was kind of something wrong with me because I wasn't like others, etc. Internally, I felt guilty because I didn't understand why my best friend in college, for example, could strike up a conversation with anybody at any time and keep doing so the whole night, and I could be kind of socially awkward and sometimes just wanted to go home and think in solitude. I say all this to point out that none of this defines who you are, either as a person or a leader in the strictest sense. Sure, it's part of who you are, but it's not your identity. I'd argue that more important in the definition of one's identity is one's character. All right, so we can think of character as being able to recognize what the right thing to do is and trying to live out godly principles through our words and actions, and kind of thus reflect God's identity, regardless of whatever inner turmoil or exterior pressure we face. So there's three stages to this, I think. There's a stage where we recognize our unique traits, um, which is key because we have to be honest with ourselves. The next stage is when we categorize those traits as either strengths, weaknesses, or neither, right? And the third stage is that we accept that we are far from perfect and we need to work on those items. We work on what needs to be worked on for our own self development and for whatever mission or endeavor we have in front of us. I think that the sooner you can accept this, the sooner you're going to be able to be on the way to be a better leader. Also, if you have to be able to recognize this process in others too. It's really hard to lead if you don't give others the grace that you give yourself. And this is key. Above all, though, you have to recognize and understand that whatever your characteristics, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, as it says in Psalm 139. Um, Also in Romans chapter 8, it says that we're children of God and that there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. So you have to remember that you're an heir of God and a follower of Christ. And as I said in a previous video, it's important to pray to God for strength and for a lit path. It's also key for us to remind ourselves that we're children of God and we're on a sanctification journey, right? So we're not going to get everything right, obviously. But when we go through life, we learn from mistakes and we ask God in our hearts and minds to help us in our sanctification process. Um, with time, our character and therefore our leadership skills will improve. All right, lead well.